investment. I don't have it anymore.
See, that was my whole thing with it too. Was I liked the just grab and go portion.
I got tired of spending more time tweaking and overclocking my machine than playing the games. So I finally just went console and spent time.
See, the only thing I miss about PC is Minecraft PC is way better than console, because you can do like the command block and you can do all that stuff on there, and you can mod it and everything else.
So I guess let's talk about the assignment that's not due till the Thursday after spring break.
Oh.
And then we'll go through the materials because.
Oh, you're talking about this. I was like, what?
No, there's one due today, right? Yeah. Everyone knows. Any questions about that?
I'll ask you when you're done with this.
Okay. I want to talk about this assignment, so when I go through the stuff, because it's all about the assignment, so the materials I have. So this is just the first part. Create a prototype of the key portions or screens of your system. You know, I bet 70% of the time I try to type the word your, I miss the R. I don't know like why. And I always like a view system.
I saw a picture. It was like for all you grammar Nazis out there, and it was like THEYIR'. Like Bay Area.
Nice. So, I mean, at least 4 to 5. Your application inevitably has to have a login screen and some kind of home screen and some other screens, or at least other.
At least a splash screen.
What would you call other states of the screens? So you can either just do it in your development environment, like you've done yours in HTML5. That's fine. But it doesn't have to work. Like the buttons don't have to work.
Well, that's good because it doesn't.
You can, if you have a login page, what you should do is just make it so when you click login, it just takes you to the next page and doesn't validate anything. Yeah, it doesn't. You can kind of make it work without really making it work. Your other option is you can do a wireframe, and the best one I could find is this one called Mockups.
Mock.
And
MOQ.
it's free if you make an account and do one project only, and you can have up to 300 elements. So I think to do your screens, now it has, like if we just look at the one they have in here, you can create buttons, you can do everything. You can create different pages. So you can create a page, and then you go back to the stencils, and you can build in whatever.
I was just gonna do mine in Photoshop. You can do it on. You can do wireframes and stuff in that.
Yeah, well, and there's a million tools to do this, but.
Did you see the quote from Futurama?
Nice.
That's from the episode when Bender gets launched into space.
So. Up to you if you want to. I mean, if you do it with your real technology, like the HTML5, then you're kind of one step ahead. But
that's exactly why.
If you don't know how to do that, or then this might be an option. I did broadcast, yes. Okay, and the sound is working, yes. All right.
Yeah.
So include a link in your wiki page inside of taiga.io so I can view the prototype. However you want to get that done. If you do HTML files or something, I guess you could just zip them up and post the file, and I could download them and look at them. I mean, that would work. If you have a place to host them, you can just do that.
Screenshot will work too, unless you want to download and run Java.
Either or. I mean, if you just give me an executable jar or something, right?
I suppose.
Yeah. And then part 2, so cultivate your backlog. So you're going to make sure that your user stories are organized in the state you want them in. That's what cultivating is, organizing and all that. So your most important one's on top. And then you're going to plan your first sprint. So that sprint will run from April 25th to 21st. We're really only going to have time for 4 sprints, and really it's going to be more like 3.5. So I thought we had an extra week, but if we do, this is due the 14th, the week after spring break, 1 sprint, 2 sprints, 3 sprints. The last sprint will take us into finals week. And then whenever we do our presentations, whatever we decide as a class when we're going to do those, that'll be the end of that sprint. So, and I'm not going to be caught up with, like, the purpose of this class is to learn about these processes and about systems analysis, not necessarily to create these. So your prototypes at the end are going to be in varying states of functionality, and that's okay because we're going through the process. So you will place in your sprint, you'll create a sprint, you enter the dates, it's pretty straightforward in Taiga, and then you put as many user stories as you think you can do in 1 week. Might be 1 for some of you, it might be 5, who knows, whatever you think you can actually get done. If you've already gotten stuff done, you can make a sprint that was dated to end like before this and put everything you've done in it. So then, yeah, so that way, I don't know, that way you're still sprinting out everything you did, even though we kind of are starting officially here. So do make sure you give some points to your user stories, because that's where some of the interesting data comes with of how hard you thought it was versus how hard it really was in the end. And then in Taiga, I don't really want to log into Taiga because then I got to look up my GitHub password and it's a pain. Once you make your sprint, there's a task board in there. You just click task board. It'll list all your user stories on the left. I'm trying to get better at mirroring my hand motion so that it's your left, not my left. So on the left, no, this is a conscious teaching thing I've been thinking about it lately, is I always say like, well, on the left, but the left for you is here, right?
Kind of like when you say, oh, you have something over here.
Yeah. So on the left, you'll have all the user stories in your sprint. This is in your task board. And then you can break them down into tasks. If you have a user story that the user needs to be able to log into the system, because user stories are focused on the user, right? Tasks to do that, you're going to have a database table to store that information. You're going to have some kind of functionality to connect to the database. The tasks are the actual development you're going to have to do to make the user story work. So, like I said here, create database tables, create database connection class, et cetera, and break those down. And then as you go through it, check them off, and at the end of the week, hopefully you accomplished what you wanted to accomplish. So it makes sense for this. You can probably sit down and bang this out in a few hours when you come back from spring break. So you don't really need to, unless you want to just get it out of the way. The last part shouldn't take you very long. It should take you like 20 minutes. The first part, to do the prototype, depending on the learning curve and the environment you're going to prototype it, that could take a little bit longer, but could take a lot longer. Depends what you do with it. But so mock-ups. Now it's really kind of confusing. If you do sign up, like it looks like it doesn't say anything about there being a free, right? Hidden down here, one project, 300 objects, 5 megabytes of storage. That's enough to do what you need to do, and then you just create your account.
It's always the small print.
Yeah. It took me a little while because on all their documentation, they don't really talk about the free version. It's like in those menus. There's also, and I was messing around this, like it'll say all over in here, new version available. It's like the 2.0 version. They're still in this transitional state. I can't even really tell that much difference, but.
Pizza or sushi. Pizza.
But I don't know, this is a pretty cool tool. I'm fairly impressed with it.
Sushi pizza. Hell yeah.
We want a nice slider
I
here.
think that's with anchovies on it.
Yeah, gross.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about prototyping. I'm not going to go through all of these links because you can kind of read through them on your own, but the first couple have slides that I found that I thought were pretty good, so I wanted to just kind of click through these. So this comes from this designs drive, and it's talking about wireframes. So what are wireframes? The benefits of them, tools to use them. I'm not really going to do a hands-on demonstration. That's You saw it. I moved something in mockups, right? That's,
I didn't see it at all. You better do it again.
So wireframes help build the structure of a website by displaying the basic elements such as header, footer, navigation, page columns. This doesn't just have to be for websites, obviously. I can't remember. I found a really good tool for prototyping apps. It's specifically designed around doing it for the size of a phone and all that, but it's very similar just for apps. Purpose of wireframes, I mean, they're just trying to get across here like how a designer would do it if they were designing clothes. Here they're doing it with a floor plan on the left. On the right, then they're showing a web page. So this would be a wire frame of what a web page would look like. So why do we do these? I mean, it's kind of obvious, but basically if we're talking about doing an agile development process, we want to be talking to the users as often as possible. Prototyping, specifically wireframing, lets us start that conversation way earlier. It's a lot more useful to go show a client we're thinking about something like this that you could whip up in 45 minutes in a tool and they could say no. Like, we want this button here. You know, you're saving a ton of time by getting this in front of users early. For managers, it allows for better project management and prioritization. It'll reveal a lot about the scope of things as you prototype them. It becomes more clear what the challenges are once you have something tangible that you can look at. That helps prioritize things and just manage the project. Developers, it's really big. Instead of just guessing, well, I think this is what the users want, they've already seen a prototype that's been put out there by a designer, or it could be by a developer, and then they know, well, this is what they want. Now I just got to make it actually do that. So it takes the guesswork out of it. So tools for wireframing, paper or whiteboard is the big traditional tool for this. I've done a lot of whiteboarding of orbital shift. There's definitely negatives to it. You take pictures of it on your phone or something, and then I don't know, it's just never organized, and you can't really see what you did, and you try to just leave them there, but inevitably someone like leans on it or screws it up. Like, we had whiteboards that had stuff on them probably for 6 months because we wanted to keep it. You know, didn't have really anywhere else to put it. The better option is tools. So PowerPoint's the one I talked about that I was taught to use back in like 2005. There's a lot better tools now, thankfully, than doing it in PowerPoint. You can put links in PowerPoint and buttons and make it click and jump to other slides and fake like that a website works in PowerPoint. It's pretty tedious and it doesn't look very good.
Yeah, I found that it's kind of harder to actually do in PowerPoint than it would be just to find.
Unless you have zero development skills, you could do it faster in HTML5 than you could in PowerPoint. Now, if you were really good with PowerPoint and had no development skills, then, you know, that wouldn't hold. But yeah, for me, you can do it in Photoshop or Illustrator. Adobe actually has a tool for it. I can't remember what it's called. This balsamic mockups is one of the older popular ones. It's a download, install a local application. And then Google Drawings, I mean, any drawing tool you could do it in. I don't know what Keynotopia is. I didn't look at that one. You can also use some CSS frameworks. So you guys used Bootstrap on your database project, and it's a kind of default template. It's came from Twitter, how Twitter looked, and then they put this framework out there. So that gives you some of the framework from the beginning without having to create it. There's others out there. hands-on demo. Nope. Okay, close this one. So that's just kind of wireframing in a very quick nutshell. Now this is creating low fidelity, but it's also somewhere in here, and high fidelity prototypes. So this is, I don't know, the Estonian Information Technology Foundation. So creating and testing low or medium fidelity prototypes. So low fidelity prototypes, that's going to be like wireframes or drawings. Medium fidelity prototypes is going to be a level of ahead of that, something you can actually interact with, and then testing prototypes. I should have dug out my PowerPoints from my class project in 2005. I probably have them for a whole year through a database class, a UI class, and a capstone course, much like this, except our capstone was 2 semesters. I created a system to track cycling data. Like, I went and rode here, it took this long, enter all the stuff from your cycling computer, back before we had GPS cycling computers that did it automatically. I actually mocked it up in PowerPoint so that you could act like you logged in. You just full screen it and you go through the whole thing. That was up to the level of a testing prototype because I videotaped people using it so that I could analyze their mouse movements and stuff for usability. So low fidelity prototype, a sketch. It'd be weird if you made a painting, I think, of a prototype, but if you're really good with oil painting or something.
I'm picturing Rob Ross going, and this is where you log in.
Now,
We'll just put that there.
I mean, I'm not a,
Happy login.
I have like no artistic ability. So usually you have people that have artistic ability to do your UI and this part of it, and then people like me write all the code to make it
I
work.
was gonna say I can
So-
still stick figures. There's no-
Maybe if you have an
there's no
artistic person,
painting for me.
they could paint it. So just the idea to remember with these sketches is like, don't spend too much time on it. Like
Put it on the
it,
wall.
it's-
Original design.
you're gonna throw it away, right? And you're gonna vary it. Don't go into detail.
Put it on the wall and then just start throwing paint at it, right?
There you go.
Like-
That's 2.0.
So here's this is a phone app, right? Doesn't it look like it? Like a barcode scanner of some
No,
kind?
Not at all. No.
I think it is.
No, it looks
It says scan, doesn't it?
rare.
Right
Right
there.
there. I'm looking for
Scan.
a second. Right
That
there.
looks like what's she talking to me?
I don't know.
It doesn't even look like it says anything from here.
So I'm not gonna make you do, it is. See, there's the camera button, the scan button, haha.
See, I told you it was a scanning app.
This is for scanning lectures into an app. You know, like people will take pictures of the notes, like on the board, on a whiteboard.
What?
Why wouldn't you just take a picture with your camera?
It's so that they're organized, like into a certain class is what, it looks like that's what they're prototyping here.
Yeah. I just
Like this day, this lecture, here was all the things I took a picture of.
Or look at it on Google.
A lot of, when I was in the math department, a lot of students did this.
I know, and when I took anthropology, everyone, at the end of the class, everyone was standing out there snapping pictures of it, like
Yeah.
end notes. For the
I stopped
class.
even taking notes because I never looked at them anyway. And I
That's
realized
exactly why I
I'd
never
be
took it.
better off just paying attention and interacting than trying to frantically write math notes that I'm never going to look at. But
When it comes to math, I usually keep lots of notes. 'cause
I went through
it
like
helps me.
5 pens in a month in math in 115.
yeah,
God, I
So-
took notes in math.
here they're actually kind of connecting the flow. Like you click the camera button, it goes here. Like it's like a workflow. I'm not going to make you do that. So medium fidelity is like a wireframe. So a visual guide that represents the skeletal framework. Usually doesn't need to have color or graphics. Here's a wireframe of that very thing we just looked at. So now it starts to come into focus.
What? I know I'm dyslexic, but that's pretty bad.
Oh, over here? Yeah, but it's
Oh, really?
Estonia. Yeah, lorem ipsum, that's like the standard thing that all the editors fill in.
Yeah, that's the, God, what do they call that? It's like,
More like Python.
no, it's not that. There's a word for it because I use it a lot of times when I mock up stuff or
Shorthand?
just building in.
Yeah,
Like-
it's Latin,
Yeah.
but I can't remember what it says in Latin.
Well, let's find out.
You look it up.
Google Translate.
I will.
So here's defining the interactions again. They're pointing out the flow from buttons to buttons. It'd be awesome if you wanted to do this, but you don't have to. If you use mockups, you can kind of just make it do that anyway. So that ability is in there. Tools, they list some. You could again do it in pen and paper, just better. Balsamics, that one again. Mockingbird, I'm suggesting that mockups tool. Testing prototypes is just going one level higher. So why do you need to test? We've talked about this a lot, but you don't know your users. You assume too much. You have no idea what your users will stumble upon. Creating personas is no substitute for real user feedback. So preparing for testing, we don't need to really go into that because we talked a lot about testing before. Now, I put some articles here. This first one, design is changing Agile for the better. This fluid UI, this is the one I was talking about. I took materials from it because they were good, but this is, they actually have it so you can prototype it and get it to run right on your phone. So you can actually like interact with it, you know, which is pretty cool. See how they're connecting everything together and, so that's a cool tool for apps. But this article discusses, and I'll let you read this, about how on one hand, some people would argue that if you're doing agile development, why do you need to do prototyping? Because if you're just iterating your project and creating it and having mini versions and then having users look at it and iterating it again, why even bother prototyping? Did you guys find it?
It said paint itself on one thing.
It's a dummy text of the printing and typesetting industry. It's been the industry standard dummy text ever since the 1500s. It's not random text. It's from classical Latin literature. Well, there you go. So that the reader's not distracted by the content, because it's
Not
I was
important.
distracted by the content.
something we just don't know what
So
it means.
it's basically just like a language within itself.
Well, I mean, it's Latin is what it's written in, so it has some meaning in it. But so anyway, this idea that with Agile, do you really need to do prototyping and that sort of thing? This article does a good job of kind of breaking that down and saying, since the Agile Manifesto came out, which was in 2001, a lot better tools have came out for doing prototyping, and that prototyping actually fits in very well into the Agile process. Now, granted, who's writing this article? It's a blog for Fluid UI, which is a product, right? So of course they're going to want to say that it's good to do prototyping even within an Agile process. But
No way, blogs never give their own opinion.
oh, right. Just look at the Orbital Shift blog that hasn't been updated in forever, you know? Like it's, you do it because it's the best way to have updated content and to bring, help your search engine thing. But I'll let you guys kind of read through this on your own. I think that prototyping, especially on smaller teams where you don't have the resources, fits into any process, because the sooner you can get your users to see it, the better. We didn't do this at Orbital Shift. The tools have come a long ways in the 7 years since we started Orbital Shift. If there had existed tools like this Fluid UI that I could have mocked up the idea of the interface and we could have shown it like at the business plan competition, would have made a huge difference. Everything we had to talk about was purely hypothetical. We didn't have, so.
You didn't do like pastel drawings? Or...
No. We didn't. And had I used wireframing to show users things before actually creating it and putting it in the real version and publishing it out, because that's really what it was. The only way to get them to look at something is once it's all the way done and I put it out into the live version of the site, and then they say, no, like
we don't like this and we don't like that.
It happened all the time, and then it's affecting them, but all of our other users because it's a shared system. But had I been able to use like mock-ups and do something that I could share with them and then say, is this kind of what you're thinking? It would have saved a lot of time. It's just something I wasn't really aware existed and probably didn't really exist back then so much. Probably did by the end of Orbital Shift, but by then we've been doing things the exact same way for 4 years. So, like I wasn't in the mode of looking for new ways to do things. Too busy.
Perfect business excuse right there.
Right.
Like, that's one thing I've learned from taking all business classes. The only reason people do stuff is because it's always been done that way.
Right.
Like there is no change in business because it's always been done that way. Which drove me freaking insane.
Building the perfect prototyping process is again a blog from Fluid. Well, these were good blogs, but just it's talking about this feedback loop that you can get feedback from. You can get feedback from your fellow designers and developers. You can get it from your customer. And you can get it from your users. So the earlier you can get that feedback. So here's a little chart they have. Now, granted, this is probably not based on exactly real data because it's too perfect of a curve, right? But the number of users that you have using it, the number of usability problems found. So if you can get up to this 12 and above, you're finding all of the problems. If you have 2, you're going to only find less than half of the problems. And I think this is probably pretty accurate. Now here is an interesting time to remove lorem ipsum. So they're suggesting to have it as close to the real thing as you can. But this is a good discussion about that process. I posted this link about GUI prototyping tools.
Whoa.
There's a lot out there, right?
There's a lot of text.
Now, there's a reason there's a lot out there because it's super important. Now, some of these, you'll see Lucid Chart in here. Like you could do, it's Lucid Spec. Nope, Lucid Chart. You could do it. It has all the drawing tools, right? Like you could draw these kind of things. Is Fluid on here? Yep, Fluid UI. So if you find another tool that you think's better than mockups, that's fine. I don't really care how you do this one. I'm not tying, like Tie Guy tied it to you to what to use, but there's a lot in here. And then at the bottom, there's some little discussion about it. So that's there. And then this agile modeling site, I've pulled quite a few articles from it, but this is again is just talking about how these prototypes fit into the process. So determine needs, build prototype, a value prototype, loop back. Once it's finished, then you can move forward. So here they're kind of going through the same sort of thing with sketches. Here they're doing a UI prototype in HTML. And then again, this is excerpt from a book. It comes out of a book. So I don't think it's a very hard argument to make why we do prototyping and why it's useful. I think this assignment will be a good exercise to do just a little bit, get a feel for that. And then hopefully I can look at it and say, this is good or this sucks, and change it before you actually start spending a bunch of time creating your actual program. Questions, comments? All right.
What happened to your Lego man's arm?
It fell off a while ago.
I've noticed that like 4 times.
Yeah. And then the flashlight part, only one
the
leg
flashlight.
works. The leg that's missing the arm, that part of the flashlight still works. I've had this on there for a while. I had a Yoda too. It must have got torn off. I don't know.
You see my new Yoda?
Didn't use the force.
Yeah, it didn't use the force. All right, no viewers today. Bye, no viewers.